Welcome to this executive decision session on ISO 55001:2024. Today, we are looking at how this international standard for asset management applies specifically to an integrated pulp and paper mill, rather than a high-level theoretical overview. I'm presenting this from the perspective of a seasoned maintenance and reliability practitioner. Our goal is to determine if we should adopt this logic and, crucially, when certification actually makes business sense. My mantra for today is simple. Implement the logic because it's good business, but certify only when there's a clear case for it. Let's start with the bottom line, the verdict. ISO 55001 creates value only when it fundamentally changes how we make real-world asset decisions. My recommendation is a two-part decision. First, we should definitely adopt the management system logic. It perfectly fits the high asset intensity and interdependence of a pulp mill. Second, should we certify now? Usually, the answer is no. We first need to prove value through a scope pilot. We want to avoid the money pits like consultant-heavy documentation that has no impact on the floor. If a difficult decision, like a major shutdown or a capital trade-off, won't change because of this system, then we shouldn't launch it. Before we approve any program, we must answer four critical questions in plain operational language. First, what is the purpose? Which enterprise objectives depend on better decisions? Second, where is the pain? Which recurring decisions are currently destroying value or hiding risk? Third, are we ready with the right leadership and data discipline? And fourth, is certification actually required by an external party? I recommend that we need three clear yes answers to justify a pilot, keeping the certification as a separate business case. So what actually is ISO 55001:2024? Think of it as a governance and decision architecture that spans the entire asset lifecycle. It connects our business context and strategy to our realized value through a structured system of policies, objectives, and controls. It's important to understand that this system coordinates how the mill decides. It's not a technical manual on how to align a pump or build a weekly maintenance schedule. It's the brain of our asset management, not just the muscle. A common mistake is treating this as a maintenance standard. It isn't. It is a cross-functional system that connects asset objectives to business objectives. While a CMS or RCM methods might support the system, they are not the system itself. You can have a shiny ISO certificate and still have poor day-to-day execution. We must ensure we don't fall into the category error of assigning this solely to the maintenance department as a software project. The 2024 revision has sharpened several areas where practitioners used to struggle. There is now a much more explicit focus on decision-making and value. We're seeing stricter requirements for managing data as a strategic asset and separate clauses for risk versus opportunity. For us in the mill, this means we can no longer hide behind a policy shell. The 2024 edition demands evidence of how our decisions actually create value across the life cycle. When you look at the ISO 55000 family, think of it as a toolkit. ISO 55001 contains the shall requirements, the rules we must follow. However, the companion documents like 55002 provide the guidance on how to actually implement them. There are even specific guides for aligning with finance or managing data. For our start, we will focus on the core requirements and the implementation guidance to ensure our foundation is solid. The requirements follow a classic closed management loop from clauses 4 through 10. It starts with understanding our context and leadership, moves through planning and support into operations, and ends with evaluation and improvement. This loop is only meaningful if the same decision criteria we set at the strategy level actually flow down in the daily work and back up through performance reviews. To keep things clear, we should separate three layers that often get confused. At the top is asset management, the coordinated activity to realize value. In the middle is the asset management system, the governance layer that ISO 55001 addresses. At the bottom is managing assets, the actual physical work of operating and maintaining. Certification only assesses that middle layer. Technical excellence at the bottom still requires our engineering and maintenance expertise. Why is this a good fit for an integrated pulp and paper mill? Because our systems are tightly coupled. A failure in the chemical recovery area can shut down the whole site. We deal with extreme degradation from chemicals and heat, high hazard exposure, and massive energy requirements. When you combine this with aging assets and scarce capital, the need for a disciplined, risk-based decision framework becomes a necessity, not a luxury. We must manage the mill as interconnected asset systems, not just an equipment list. An asset register is just a list of stuff, but a system map shows functional dependencies. For example, our power island isn't just a boiler. It's a utility provider for every other department. Our scope decisions and criticality rules must follow these dependency paths rather than just departmental silos. In this system, value is defined as the best whole life balance of performance, risk, and expenditure. It's not just about the lowest maintenance cost or the highest availability in isolation. Every material decision should make these trade-offs visible. If we can't explain why a specific option is better across these four dimensions, we haven't truly evaluated the value. Setting the right scope is critical. We shouldn't just say all mill assets on day one. Instead, we should start with a high consequence system, like the recovery boiler, and include all the enabling processes like finance and supply chain that govern it. Avoid the anti-pattern of choosing a boundary just to make the audit easier. That creates a paper exercise that doesn't solve real problems. The Strategic Asset Management Plan, or SAM, is the bridge between our high-level strategy and our daily choices. It shouldn't be an 80-page manual that sits on a shelf. It should be a live decision document that defines our scope, value framework, and roadmap. It's what tells a maintenance lead exactly how their objectives support the mill's 3-year plan. The goal is to make asset decisions repeatable and transparent. Take a repair versus replace decision for a major pump. We should frame the objective, evaluate the risk and life cycle cost, and then decide based on evidence. Using weighted scoring can help the conversation, but we must never let a spreadsheet hide a safety risk or a lack of real data. Looking at clauses 4 through 6, the focus is on translating purpose into a plan. We know it's working when the scope matches our consequence paths, and when our mill leaders are actively using the system in capital and risk forms. The SAM should actually guide our budgets, not just be a copy-paste of last year's figures. Clauses 7 through 10 are where the rubber meets the road. This is where we build capability and control the life cycle. We need evidence that critical knowledge survives staff turnover and that our projects meet life cycle acceptance criteria. Improvement isn't just about fixing a broken pump. It's about acting predictively to prevent future degradation or obsolescence before it hits the production line. Governance cannot be delegated to the maintenance department alone. We need a model where the mill manager is the sponsor and various cross-functional leads own their respective systems. A single ISO coordinator can help manage the paperwork, but they cannot own the decisions or the outcomes. True success requires finance, operations, and engineering all sitting at the same table. We are not building a standalone silo. ISO 55001 is designed to integrate with our existing quality, environmental, and safety systems. We should reuse what we already have, like our risk assessment methods or internal audit processes, to avoid duplicate bureaucracy. One integrated management system is the target. Data and knowledge must be designed backward from the decisions we need to make. We don't need perfect data. We need decision-grade data. This includes foundation records like equipment lists, but also decision memory, the assumptions we made when we decided to defer a repair. Our EM system is just one source of this knowledge. We must control the asset life cycle through formal decision gates. A common failure in mills is the capital project handoff, where a new system is commissioned but the maintenance team doesn't have the spares, the training, or the data to support it. Every gate must test for value and maintainability before we move to the next stage. Criticality is more than just a ranking. It is a policy for differentiated control. Tier A assets, those that could cause a mill-wide catastrophe, require executive-level risk authority and independent assurance. At the other end, Tier D assets might just be run to failure. This ensures we are spending our limited resources where they provide the most risk reduction. When we start, we need a pilot that is important enough to matter but bounded enough to learn from. The recovery and power island, or a specific bottleneck production train, are strong candidates. because they have clear boundaries and high consequences. We should avoid a mill-wide rollout initially, as it often fails due to mixed data readiness and weak interfaces. Pilot option A is the recovery in Power Island. It's a powerhouse for a pilot because every department depends on its steam and power. The decisions here involve major outages and high-risk equipment. If we can prove that ISO 55001 improves the quality of a recovery boiler shutdown or a turbine renewal, we've proven the case for the whole mill. Pilot option B focuses on a production bottleneck. Here, the pain is usually chronic defects, quality losses, or speed issues. The focus would be on testing decisions around redundancy, spares, and sensor strategies. Success here is measured in saleable tons and the elimination of repeat failures that plague the production chain. A realistic roadmap takes about 24 months. We start with governance and gap assessments, move into a 6-month pilot, and then scale across the mill. The key is to move based on evidence, not the calendar. We only exit a phase when we can actually see change decisions and own controls in action. In the first 6 months, our goal is a minimum viable system. We need a mandate from the sponsor, a clear scope, and a concise SAM. If the sponsor isn't willing to lead the decision forums at this stage, we should stop before we waste time writing hundreds of procedures that no one will follow. From months 6 to 18, we embed the system into our daily routines. This means changing how we review capital projects, how we plan outages, and how we manage suppliers. The evidence of success isn't a folder full of documents. It's seeing a decline in repeat failures and a more stable restart after a major shutdown. Certification is optional. We can use the logic of ISO 55001 to improve our business without ever hiring an external auditor. We should only pull the certification trigger if there is a specific demand from a customer, regulator, insurer, or owner. Use the certificate as a final assurance of a system that is already working, not as the primary goal. We have to be deliberate about the resource burden. I recommend the phased certification ready model. This focuses on practical alignment first, adding the formal evidence and auditing requirements later. Avoid the Big Bang approach where consultants generate mountains of paper to meet an arbitrary audit deadline. It's expensive and usually creates massive change fatigue. Where will the value actually show up? We should expect better capital allocation, clearer risk ownership, and more stable operations. This is about creating useful data and a culture of organizational learning. We'll measure this by pairing leading indicators, like decision quality, with lagging outcomes like cost and downtime. There are 8 classic ways to waste money on ISO 55001, and we must avoid all of them. The biggest risks are making it maintenance-owned only, or letting it become a consultant-owned documentation project. We must integrate with existing systems rather than creating a duplicate bureaucracy of second meetings and separate databases. External evidence shows that while a common framework improves alignment, an ISO certificate alone doesn't prove technical excellence. We should be skeptical of guaranteed financial outcomes. The value comes from the implementation and the culture change, not from the piece of paper on the wall. Here is my practitioner scorecard. For an integrated mill, the strategic fit for governing complex life cycles is a 5 out of 5. However, as a standalone maintenance method, it's weak. We still need our technical reliability tools. The verdict? Adopt the framework and integrate it, but don't buy the certification unless there's a strategic case. This decision tree guides our next steps. If we have a certification requirement, we build a cert-ready system. If not, we ask if we have material decision pain. If we do, we pilot and prove value first. If we don't have major decision pain and no external requirement, we shouldn't launch an ISO program at all. We should just fix the specific operating problems we have. Our recommended strategy is simple: align, pilot, embed, and then decide on certification. This is a go if the sponsor wants better decisions and is willing to govern them. It's a stop if we're just looking for a logo to put on our website. We want to earn the right to certify through actual performance. Our first 90 days are focused on action. We'll name the leadership, diagnose the gaps, and launch the pilot. By day 90, I expect to have one live pilot with a clear decision calendar and its first live decisions being made under the new framework. This keeps the momentum focused on results rather than volume of documentation. In summary, ISO 55001 is not wasteful by design, but becomes wasteful when the process replaces the purpose. My recommendation is to implement the logic, pilot it, and integrate it. Before we approve, we must be able to answer these 6 questions, starting with, which decision will actually change? For those who want to dive deeper, this slide lists the official ISO sources and the 2024 revision guidance. I encourage the steering team to review the ISO 55000 vocabulary and the 55001 requirements to ensure we are all using the same language as we move forward. Finally, we've curated a list of implementation and sector-specific references. These cover everything from energy bandwidth studies to case studies on asset management maturity. These will be useful resources for our team as we design a system that is specifically tailored to the unique challenges of our mill.